What's up, Everyday Blades? We got a fantastic knife here today. I've always been a big fan of Benchmade, big fan of Spyderco. I've always leaned a little towards the Benchmade side. Depends on when we're talking about. A few years ago, I leaned a little more towards the Spyderco side. They just fit that spot for me. It's a nice enough knife for me to collect. They're durable enough. The ergonomics are great on all of them. The actions are great on pretty much all of them. It's just even though they're extremely high right now, everything's high right now. It's a good price point for me of a knife I can collect and actually use and not worry about, beating on it, because it can take it, and without ruining a knife that costs $1,000. But today we're talking about one of my favorite Benchmades so far. My absolute favorite Benchmade ever is the Narrows. Hands down, best Benchmade ever made. I love this knife. It's just no contest. But a close second was my 20CV Benchmade, 20CV Bug Out with the white scales on it. That version, great EDC. My son EDCs that every day and has for like 2 years, and he's hard on it. But they have come out with a gem, and I didn't get this for a long time because the original version had orange Grivery scales on it, some type of plastic or whatever they use. I think it's called Grivery. And the steel wasn't that big a deal. I think it was D2 or I don't know. Anyway, the steel didn't matter to me that much. It was mainly those orange scales. They were just, ugh. Then they come out with this. These scales, even though I'm not a fan of green, it's the last color I would pick on the color chart, I think, other than maybe pink. It goes really well with this burnt orange anodization. This anodized aluminum. It looks really, really good on here and feels amazing. They did a great job finishing this, man. This is so soft, and the action is just butter. So what this should have been called was the King Kong Bug Out, because that's exactly what it is. It's a better version of the Bug Out. It's better ergos, better blade steel, better blade all the way around. Better scales. It's just a fantastic knife. This is my second favorite Benchmade of all time. They did a great, and this one's an S45VN, really good steel. I mean, nobody could argue with S45VN. It's a fantastic steel. For me, really, the only way you're gonna get better is like go up to a Magna Cut or whatever. But I mean, to be honest with you, in my day-to-day life, I can't tell the difference. I can tell a little bit when I sharpen it. This 45VN seems to be a little easier to sharpen than Magna Cut. But this knife is awesome. I vouch for this thing to the moon. I love it. And I didn't expect to, because I'm not a huge fan of the brown box Benchmades. I've had, Crooked River and all that. And I just wasn't super impressed with them. It seemed kind of old-timey to me. Kind of reminded me of all the, old nail nick knives, Nothing wrong with that back then. They were awesome, but they're just, they're not with the technology today. And this one is just fire. Look at that action. This thing's pretty much brand new. Just flings out there. Love that blade shape. Thumb studs. The original came with a hole cut out here, like a, oblong spidey hole type thing, but I like the thumb studs better on this one, and you don't normally hear me say that. I normally like the cutout better, but it's not a huge deal. I could take either one of them and be happy with it. This is just a great knife, man. They hit a home run. Sometimes the most subtle things, just making that a little bit bigger than the Benchmade, made it fit my hand so perfectly, and gave it a little more ergonomics in the Benchmade instead of just a flat handle. Let's look at something here. Compare it to the blade stock. Looks like the blade stock's just a hair thicker on the Taggedout. Did I call this the bailout earlier? This is a Taggedout. Benchmade Taggedout. I don't think I called it anything. But this is the Benchmade Taggedout, and this is the CPM S45VN version. Not the orange handled original version. Let's check out some specs on it. First, let's check the weight on it. It does not have any weight. Very little. Another thing it has in common with the bug out. 2.9 ounces. Fantastic. And same caveat as most of my knives. It's not brand new, but I don't think it's been through any cutting enough to where it would change the sharpness. So let's check the sharpness just for shizzles and grizzles. 115. Get on out of here. Dude, that's right on double edge razor blade sharp. That's the sharpest production knife I've ever put on this machine, I think. I don't think I've ever had anything. I've sharpened some that were sub 100, but man, it took a long time to get on there. And really concentrating. The Benchmade Taggedout S45VN version. Let's look at the specs. Our handle is 3.5. Our blade, excuse me, is 3.5 inches, and we're 4 5/8 on the handle scales. Right at 8 1/4 full length. Here is a Ontario Rat 1, Ontario Radius 2, and here's two really good samples side by side here. Put the Narrows, best Benchmade ever made, up against the 20 CV bug out. You can see it kind of lives in that bug out family. It just kind of grew up. It's like the grown up bug out for when things get serious. So there it is, guys. I highly recommend that one. If you get that and you're disappointed, you gotta screw loose, because this here checks everybody's boxes. Guys, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. It really helps us out and doesn't cost you a thing. God bless you and your family. Say a prayer for our country. Good night.